Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell will make their voices heard this morning on Capitol Hill. They're part of a Stand with Survivors rally. Just yesterday, the House committee investigating Epstein released a trove of files related to the convicted sex offender. Comes as the Trump administration faces mounting pressure to release more information about his case. Now, the content of all the records was not immediately clear, but many of these files have already been made public.
Democrat Ro Khanna and Republican Thomas Massie are leading a bipartisan push in the House for the release of the Epstein files. They will hold a press conference with some of Epstein's victims after that rally this morning. Khanna had this to say on MSNBC last night.
This is not partisan. This is not anti-Trump. This is about standing with survivors. This is about protecting kids. This is about morality.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona, who joins us with the latest. Mel, good morning. So first, what more can you tell us about this batch of documents the House committee released last night? Anything new or newsworthy here?
Yeah, good morning, guys. It does appear that after an NBC News review of these files, that most of what was released yesterday was already publicly available information. So things like public court filings and transcripts from the trials, investigative files from the Palm Beach Police Department. Now, there were some flight logs. That may have been the only real new piece of information from Epstein's plane. Some of that information was already available, but what they released yesterday appears to be more current than what had already been publicly available. That being said, it doesn't say who was actually on the plane, just lists the number of people, does indicate that there were both males and females on that plane, in addition to Epstein, of course. And overall, of these, some 30,000 pages of documents, it represents only a fraction of what the DOJ overall has in its possession that relates to this case. So the question is whether the DOJ is going to be handing over more files to the House Oversight Committee, which did issue a subpoena for the documents related to this case. The DOJ has insisted this is a first batch. That is what we heard from Speaker Mike Johnson and Oversight Chair James Comer as well. But there's a real question about whether this might be the extent of what the committee actually receives.
Mel, in one of the first House actions since lawmakers returned from their summer recess, Republican Representative Thomas Massie, who we were just discussing there, he filed a discharge petition yesterday to force a vote compelling the Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files. Has Massie said why he's so adamant about this, and how is GOP leadership responding here?
Well, for Massie, his sort of argument is that he doesn't trust the DOJ or the Trump administration to turn over all the information. He believes the only real way to get their hands on this information is his measure, the one you mentioned, that essentially calls for the immediate release of essentially all the files with very minimal redactions. Now, in terms of how the GOP leadership is responding, I'm told they've been mounting an all-out effort to try to stop this so-called discharge petition. They teed up a separate sort of symbolic measure that they're going to vote on this week, just encouraging the House Oversight Committee investigation. And they also decided to release those files publicly yesterday. This is all part of a strategy behind the scenes. And meanwhile, we're also hearing that the White House has been lobbying members, Republican members, not to back that discharge petition, at least according to Thomas Massie. Take a listen to what he said last night.
They are trying very hard to keep this from getting the requisite number of signatures to force the vote. And I think it's foolhardy. I think we'd be served better politically. Obviously, the victims would be served better in terms of justice, but Republicans would be served better politically by just following through on this promise and releasing the files.
So as of right now, only 4 Republicans, including Massie, have signed on to this discharge petition. They need 218 lawmakers total. And assuming that all Democrats sign on, that means they need 6 Republicans total. So they're close, but they're not quite there yet. And at least 2 Republicans who previously said they might sign on to this discharge petition now saying they're not going to back it because of the public release of those files last night. But it's something that we're certainly watching on Capitol Hill over these next few days.
And Mel, it's going to be an important day for Epstein victims on the Hill today. We're going to hear from some of them more in a moment. But what can we expect from this Stand with Survivors rally and the press conference that's supposed to follow?
Yeah, I think it could be a really powerful and explosive moment. We're expecting to hear from 10 victims and survivors, some of which have never even spoken out publicly before, according to both Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, who are helping to organize this press conference. This comes after yesterday some victims also had a private roundtable behind closed doors with a bipartisan group of members. Speaker Johnson was also in attendance. The question, of course, is whether some of these new public insights potentially in these powerful stories are enough to sway some members to sign on to that discharge petition that we talked about. Regardless, though, it's pretty clear that this is going to be an issue that stays in the spotlight on Capitol Hill for quite some time.
No doubt. All right, Mel, thank you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.